Hope you got your fill of candy last night, because there's going to be nothing sweet here. Welcome back to Week 10 of the College Football Show, presented by the Regular Usual. I'm your host, Jordan Ash, and I don't know why I felt the need to say my last name, but I did anyway. And I'm back doing another standing podcast. Why? Because you can't see behind me. I got myself a little bulletin board here, a little dry erase board where I can do up-to-date stuff and circle things in instead of using this notepad. If you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about because you're listening on your phone, well, I have a YouTube channel as well. It's the Regular Usual, and this light in the background is making things challenging. So turning that one off, I'm going to carry on. Basically, the Regular Usual on YouTube, it's going to have all the podcasts, or at least the college football shows, listed there. But if you want to stick to not seeing me, which I don't blame you, you can just keep on heading over to iTunes, wherever else you find podcasts at. No, I'm not on Spotify, and don't plan on doing it because I don't use Spotify, so why would I post it there, you know? Anyways, if you're a first-time listener, each and every week I go through some of my favorite games that are going to be played out and for the upcoming weekend and give you my thoughts and point spreads, yada yada. You follow me, you fade me, and hopefully you make a little money at the same time, one way or the other. Speaking of making money, you can always head over to bovada.lv. There'll be a link in the show notes as well as the description of the YouTube channel. Well, they do a deposit bonus match up to $250. Basically, you put in $250, they will give you an additional $250, leaving you with what? $500. That's right. Sesame Street worked out well for us. Actually, I think that was letters versus actual math. Anywho, I haven't watched Sesame Street forever. I'm almost 30. We're going to do a quick little recap off of last week's results. It's one of the things I kind of let you know. So you, again, if you're a first-time listener, you can judge me harshly, or you can be like, oh yeah, that's why I listen to this guy. He gets shit right. Anyways, last week I went 4-3-1 out of the 8 games I picked. That one tie there ended up being the Iowa. I took Iowa +6 at Penn State. They ended up losing 30-24, which was a push, which basically gives me my money back. So I'm going to include it in there. It did bring my overall record to 43-36-1, leaving my overall win percentage at 53.75. Let's call it 54 because why not? We round up in this house. The overall balance, which some of you may or may not care about, is $173.68. That is down from the week prior, but I didn't get a chance to make any of the extra bets I usually do in the shoe money section because I was helping a friend move, and he kind of fucked up my whole weekend. So, thank you, Justin. Tonight's drink of choice is going to be another Sierra Nevada, big shock. It's going to be a Torpedo Extra IPA, which is harsh as shit right now, but we're going to power through it. Anyways, because of those bets I didn't get to make where I normally place 8-10, only won one of those, which was the Texas Tech at Iowa State. The over of 58 ended up going to 71 points. The rest of last week's games that we touched on, when I was recording, the night I recorded, we took Georgia Southern +10 against number 25 Appalachian State. Georgia Southern won outright 34-14. We also took Clemson by their 17 points on the road to FSU, where they waxed the Seminoles' ass 59-10. Don't worry, FSU fans, it happened to me, a Miami fan, back in the Al Golden era. So thankfully he was at the end of his contract, so we got him out. You, on the other hand, have at least 3 more years of Willie Taggart. Then we continued on the win streak with Northwestern +7 against Wisconsin. We thought they'd keep it close. They ended up winning that game outright 31-17. Then the losses came with Michigan winning over Purdue, Georgia winning over Florida, and USF not even showing up against Houston. The final win of the night, of course, was Washington State. I took them as 3-point underdogs. They also won outright 41-38. That's kind of it. That's the little breakdown from last week. I hope you enjoyed it because it took up more time than I expected. Also, yesterday, Tuesday the 30th, was the first rankings of the college football playoff came out, where basically we have until December 2nd to see who's going to be the final 4 teams to make the playoff. And there was a lot of reaction to the bottom half of basically revolving UCF. Basically, the bottom 10 That's where things got a little murky and shaked up. Otherwise, the college football rankings are basically exact replicas of the AP poll. You had number 1 Alabama, number 2 Clemson, number 3 LSU, and number 4 Notre Dame. Myself, I don't know if you can see this on the video, but there's a little line here that says college football play CFP rankings / Team Chaos. What's Team Chaos? Team Chaos is something I root for every single year. I want to see everybody at the top fall to shit at the end of the year, except for my teams, of course. But the Blue Bloods, who we're tired of seeing win up there, we're tired of seeing Alabama up there, we're tired of seeing Clemson there. Give some new life into it. Let's inject some other teams into the system. So for me, if everything in a perfect world, if things play out this weekend with a couple of losses, I, fingers crossed, hope happen, and a couple other shakeups go down the road, the Final Four I would like to see come December 2nd would be number 1 Clemson, LSU at number 2, meaning Miami did lose their first game of the season to an eventual college football playoff contender, where hopefully they knock off Alabama this weekend. Number 3 is Michigan. Why? Because A, don't like Ohio State. B, I'd like to see another team who hasn't made the playoff yet, their first playoff appearance, see how they do under that type of pressure and atmosphere, especially with Shea Patterson running the ship at quarterback. I want to see exciting teams in there, which leads me to my number 4 team, Oklahoma / UCF. Either one of those exciting, explosive offenses against some teams with those top 3 being some of the best 3. They're in the top 10 if I'm not mistaken. Each one of those 3 in the top 10 in total defenses for the country. Oklahoma, of course, averaging, I think they're the number 2 scoring team in the country, only right behind UCF. I may have that reversed, but that's not important right now. I'd like to see either one of those. For that to happen, we need a lot of things. 2 of those games we're going to touch on. Well, 3 of them, I guess. LSU and Alabama this weekend. Penn State, Michigan, Oklahoma taking on Texas Tech. And the first game we're going to touch on is UCF and Temple. I could explain more about this on why I want to see it happen, but if you think about it, tell me what you'd rather watch. Would you rather see Clemson versus Alabama in the national title game for the 3rd year in a row? Or would you rather see one of these new teams in here kind of make a push? The reason I have Clemson number 1 is because I don't see really any other teams in AC challenging Clemson. So as long as they continue winning, they don't do a quote-unquote Clemsoning against someone like South Carolina at the end of the year, or trying to think of who else is on their schedule. Maybe they already played NC State. But one of those teams that they just, typical letdowns that happens to, I don't want to see it. And they're probably going to end up playing Virginia in the ACC title game. So they should roll right on through. And they're a fun team to watch, especially with a true freshman quarterback. Next up, LSU. LSU is boring offensively. Everyone will admit that. Defensively, though, not the best, but their secondary is one of the best teams out there. And who wouldn't want to see more Coach O speak gibberish into the mic with his crazy Baton Rouge Cajun accent? Next up, Michigan. Again, we touched on Harbaugh, we touched on Shea Patterson, and we just want to see another representative from another conference, or from someone other than Ohio State from the Big Ten. I thought there'd be a chance you could maybe see Wisconsin in there, but they decided to lose Northwestern last week, and how great would that be? A Northwestern win this weekend, even though it's not a conference game, it's Notre Dame, that would catapult them into the top 25 and kind of put us in the front runner in that side of the Big Ten. So that would be a lot of fun. Could you imagine if Northwestern was the playoff team that won? Ended up making it, I think they have 4 losses this year, and they make it. That would be sick. It would never happen because college football gods would not allow that. Then finally, Oklahoma. Big 12 has yet. They made it last year with Baker Mayfield as quarterback. I'd like to see it again with Kyler Murray. The offense is even better this year. Defensively, though, they've taken a step back. But I want somebody with offensive firepower. If Texas wouldn't have dropped the ball against Oklahoma State last week, they wouldn't be a bad one to watch, but I think they would also be completely steamrolled as well against any of the top 3 teams. And then, of course, UCF, 20-0. They haven't lost in 2 years, and they're one of the underdogs. Everyone likes a good underdog story. They don't get the title, they don't get the recognition they deserve, but UCF still has to win out to even have a shot at that against tough games against USF, surprisingly, and Houston as well, which could come down to the AAC title. And of course, they have a Heisman contender as well under Mackenzie Milton. Speaking of UCF, we're going to start on them right away. Jeremy, I'm going to grab a quick little sip of beer. That was more like a gulp, if I'm being honest. I'm going to chase that with some water because I'm a bitch. And get into it. Thursday night, the night this podcast released, you're going to have unranked Temple at 5-3 heading into the undefeated and 2017 national champions, UCF Knights. Game's going to go down in Orlando with UCF being 10.5 point favorites. Personally, I'm surprised the line is this high, mainly being because Mackenzie Milton's going to be a game time decision. He's still dealing with the ankle injury he sustained at Memphis a couple weeks ago. In the step, Daryl Mack, who started the game and played the entire game last week against East Carolina. While he wasn't spectacular when it comes to the box score, he did go 12 for 20, which is over 50% passing, but only for 69 yards. However, where Mackenzie Milton will usually throw the ball for over 300 yards a game and not run it as much, only when necessary, Mack was more of a run-first quarterback, ended up with 120 yards on the ground. Temple, on the other hand, they've been in great shape since Matt Rule left and headed over to Baylor. They haven't really paid the spoiler much other than, last week where they beat another top 25 team in Cincinnati. Both these teams are coming off 2 weeks, I guess not really 2 weeks, just early week games. Hold on, when was the 20th? I'm confused now. Apologies for that. The 20th. So yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks. Both these teams are coming off of byes, so they have plenty of film on each other to kind of compare and contrast and come up with game plans to stop the opposing team. Again, I said Mackenzie Milton will be a game time decision in this one. Personally, I think UCF feels a little disrespected, and now they're going to kind of have to go back to the BCS side of things, back when you had to have your margin of win up a little bit higher, and the style points count when it comes down to those style things because your margin of victory. UCF needs this win and win big. I expect this to be a packed house at Bright House Stadium, and for that reason, I'm going to go with my alma mater, UCF. I guess that works. Does that work for circling, or should I go and just write it in? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. This green marker sucks, so let's try to switch over to the blue one just to be on the safe side. If you're a podcast listener, I apologize, but if you're watching this on video, you probably should. Again, that's the regular usual on YouTube. There we go. Look how much better that blue looked. Just nice and sharp. We're going to take UCF minus 10.5. If I can, I'll try to get them at 10 if the line moves at all. At 11, I feel a little shaky, but still pretty confident. Next up, you have number 6 Georgia as 9-point favorites on the road against number 9 Kentucky. Yes, you heard that right. Number 9 Kentucky. We are not talking about basketball. The Wildcats are somehow a top 10 team. But before you freak out and say, no, Kentucky's good, I saw some of the wins they have. Who have they beaten? Let's take a little look here. They beat a then-ranked Mississippi State team. Other than that, they've beaten Florida. Everyone else has, of course, they have the loss to Texas A&M. Everyone else, no one's been ranked. Florida's their only impressive victory, so they need Florida to win out to even have a chance. Although they do hold the tiebreaker over Florida if it came down to the SEC East, Georgia also beat Florida last weekend. So if Georgia wins this game, pretty much lock them into the college football, or to the SEC title game representing the East. If Kentucky wins, there's your SEC East champion, probably taking on Alabama or LSU. This game here, Georgia getting 9 points on this one. I'm going to tell you before we even break this game down, I'm jumping all over that line right now. Giving the Bulldogs minus 9. Why? Because Kentucky's offense is trash. You'd be like, well, no, you're wrong. The only thing about Kentucky's offense is good is Benny Snell. Again, he's the workhorse. The offense kind of lives and dies by him. And teams are starting, Missouri especially, keyed in on this. Said, all right, we're going to put 9 guys in the box and make your quarterback, what is it, Terry Wilson? Yeah, make him beat you with his arm. What did he do? He threw 2 picks last week, and Benny Snell never really got going. They only won that game 15-14, and kind of by a fluke if you happen to catch the game. Speaking of which, I do want to apologize. I'm going to take a quick timeout and want to apologize for not watching. It's hard for me to admit this, but last week was the first time in maybe 6 to 7 years that I actually watched more NFL football on Sunday than college football I did on Saturday. I know, I apologize. Miami did play Friday night, so I watched that game and watched them play like shit and was upset. And it made me kind of realize I take my sports too seriously. I will let watching Miami football and how they play and when they let me down, I will let too much of that ruin my entire Saturday, including for the people I'm watching the game with, people who want to hang out with me. I just get too emotionally invested and it fucks up everything. Friday, we were out with friends. We did a costume party, beer mile out of the local brewery. I was enjoying myself up until the game started when I just saw Miami falling shit. And instead of spending time and enjoying it with my friends, I was a grumpy Gus and sat in the corner and just kind of watched the game sober. Didn't want to drink much other than the 2 beers provided at the mile until I got my little free beer coupon and used that on a cider because I'm a vagina. That's right. But no, it's something I really realized. I had one of my friends, Jared, he came up to me and was just like, dude, he goes, how much does Miami winning and losing really matter in the long run? Were you alumni from the school? Do you have a bunch of money riding on this game? What is it, man? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I know I'm being dumb and letting this ruin my Saturdays or ruin my Friday night. And so I already knew I couldn't watch much football on Saturday, helping my friend move. But I really thought about that on the way home that night and the next day. I'm like, shit, I'm missing out on some of these games. And then after I got back from moving a friend to Sarasota, I was supposed to spend time with my mom. And that's exactly what I did. It's trying to finally take her out for her birthday and spend a little time with her. And that's what I did. I didn't really get a chance to watch much football on Saturday. I mean, I got to watch, I think, 5 minutes of the Georgia-Florida game last week, and that was it. So it's something I'm going to be working on going forward. I know this is another weekend. I'm not going to be able to watch much football because I'm going to be away at a wedding. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting older or that just really hit me hard that I let sports kind of dictate the way I let sports dictate my enjoyment. They have no meaning to me. Yes, I enjoy doing this podcast each and every week and betting the little couple of bucks here and there, and it just makes it more exciting. But maybe if I didn't take it so seriously, I'd be a lot more fun to be around on Saturdays, and the podcast wouldn't have as much Miami bias to it or UCF bias to it, but it does. So it's something I work on and something I want to apologize to you, 9 to 10 people who listen to this show each and every week. But yeah, that's it's a first for me. It's been the first time that's happened in a long time that I did watch more pro football. And I fell asleep during that game, by the way. It was the Packers and Rams. I watched more pro football than I did college, and for that, I apologize. Anywho, back to the reason you came to this, reason you tuned into this episode was Georgia and Kentucky. Basically, Georgia's going to load the box. Kentucky can't score, and Georgia can. I really think this will be the best defense that Kentucky's gone up against all year, including Florida, including Texas A&M. And if Kentucky scores double digits, I'll be shocked. Yes, I think more than anything, though, the reason this game is doomed for Kentucky is because after their little fluke win over Missouri last week, we saw Mark Stoops, if you didn't see the video, Mark Stoops was crowd surfing to Mo Bamba after the W last week, and A, that song's played out. B, it's, you can't have white guys doing shit like that. So, give me the Bulldogs all day. Kirby Smart, don't fuck up, or Georgia's doomed. Next game. We have number 13, West Virginia, on the road at number 17, Texas. Texas is going to be 2-point home favorites, and that's probably the reason for the points, is because they are home favorites, because they are the home team. If it was an evening game, I expect that line to probably be maybe around 3.5, Austin at night. Of course, Texas did go on the road last week and lose in Stillwater to Oklahoma State. West Virginia, on the other hand, they took care of business, handed Baylor handedly. I don't know, is that a poor use of grammar? Probably. But they won to the tune of 58-14, while Texas lost by 3 at Oklahoma State, 38-35. The good thing for Texas in this game is that Sam Ehlinger was back after injuring his shoulder. What was it? The week prior when they played Baylor, if I'm not mistaken. So he was back, or when they played Oklahoma, came back for the Oklahoma State game, almost led them all the way back. Will Greer on the other side of the ball started off this year as probably one of the top Heisman favorites. To get back into that conversation, to get in there with Tua from Alabama, to get into it with, who's the other Heisman quarterback who we're all talking about? Kyler Murray, and those are really the only quarterbacks I can think of off the top of my head right now from some of these ranked teams. He needs a win here to get back into the conversation, especially if he has a big showing. I will say, from the Baylor game, from just reading the box score against West Virginia, it wasn't that they necessarily didn't have a need to run because they relied on Will Greer's arm and defense, but they rushed for less than 100 yards that game. Texas has a pretty damn good run defense, as well as they are susceptible through the air a little bit, but Texas is a good defensive team. West Virginia, not so much. West Virginia kind of plays the same type of ball that Oklahoma plays, where they're just like, hey, we're just going to outscore you. I mean, you got whoever wins the most points scores, or whoever scores the most points wins in the end. So that's the style of play that Dan Holgorsen and West Virginia plays. I'm gonna be honest. 2 points. Texas getting 2 points at home is tough. The winner of this game will likely control the Big 12. The loser's going to fall out, and it'll be between one of them and Oklahoma. It could be a preview of the Big 12 title game here. This one we're currently talking about. Man. Texas and 2 points at home. Tom Herman, if it was an underdog, I'd say give me Tom Herman all day. If Texas win this game, they're still not quote-unquote back, but I like to see the Longhorns doing well. I don't have much faith in West Virginia. I do think West Virginia can win this. See, if I say West Virginia can win, that'll already mess up my pick. But I can tell you right now, I'm going to be pulling for Texas. And just because of home field advantage, I'm going to go with the Longhorns -2. And hopefully they can take care of business and control their destiny in the Big 12. Heading up north to the Pac-12, to the Big 10, you have number 14 Penn State on the road at the Big House in Michigan, at number 5 Michigan, where they are 10.5-point underdogs to the Wolverines. This game here, Michigan's had 2 weeks of prep. You've given Jim Harbaugh 2 weeks to prepare his defense to control Trace McSorley and whoever the hell their running back is. Who is he? Karen Higdon. Well, he's run the shit out of the ball, I can tell you that much. He's almost 830. He's got 831 of the year, 10 wins into the season. So just by simple math, he's averaging 80 yards a game. Michigan, of course, one of the best defenses in the country, only giving up 220 yards per game. Just on this one here, based on numbers alone, I'm going to say, oh yeah, Penn State. But I don't know about Michigan. 10.5 points, that's a lot to give up, even for a team as talented as Michigan. But they are also a team that needs style points to get in. When you need the points the most, you never get them, especially in games like this. James Franklin's going to pull out every trick in the playbook. He's going to be doing some trick plays, trying to get his players in the best position to win. The over-on this one, only 52, so they don't expect a lot of scoring. I think some of that will attribute to Michigan's affinity to turn the ball over and Penn State unable to actually move the ball. So if you break it down like that, that's 26 points each. Do I think Michigan get 26 points? Yes. Do I think Penn State can score 16? Maybe. It'll be a close one. As much as I think the Wolverines will win this one, and no, I'm not going to bring in and talk to Jeremy or the brother Soko in this one. I know they'd be like, oh no, Michigan's going to win this one big, and I'm going to bet against them. 10 point, if it was just single digits, give me Michigan. But because of the half point that I'll probably add on to here, I'm going to take Penn State in this one. Give me Penn State plus 11. If I can, I'll lock that in for the lower rate. But Michigan wins, Penn State covers, moving on. To a team we already mentioned. Number 4 Notre Dame is going to be 9.5-point favorites on the road at Northwestern. Northwestern, of course, is only 5-3, but they are on a 4-game win streak, of course, coming off upset victories over Michigan State and Wisconsin last weekend. Notre Dame, undefeated on the year. They haven't really had many close games. They almost slipped up 2 weeks ago at Pittsburgh. Northwestern, on the other hand, we just talked about Michigan. They played Michigan within 3 points. I think Michigan is a better team than Notre Dame, even though Notre Dame is the only team to beat Michigan this year. Because you're at Northwestern, I know I'm kind of all over the place here. Because Northwestern is at home, where they tend to do very well against the spread, and you're going to get 10 points at home, I got to take Northwestern all day on that one. I think one of the big ones here is, on top of the tight games that Northwestern's played most this year, you look back at most of their games, especially in their losses. Well, even in their wins, Wisconsin was a little bit of a fluke. All of their games have kept close, usually within 10 points. And you're going to spot me 10 at home? That just, mathematically, that makes sense. Notre Dame, they're a team whose schedule's only going to get tougher as the year goes on. They're going to play USC still, and try to think who else they actually have on their schedule this year. Because right after Northwestern, it doesn't get any easier. Oh, wow. Actually, maybe it does. They play at Northwestern, then they get FSU at home, number 19 Syracuse at home, then finish the year at USC, who is a little paper tired. So basically, this could be the last test for Notre Dame here. Win this game, you're probably in the playoffs. So expect Notre Dame to win, but give me the Wildcats to cover at home. Here we go again. It's kind of weird how my board's kind of doing a little bit of a pattern here. Picking out those trends. You see that little zigzag we have going for these games? Give me the favorite. When it's all 3 favorites, 2 underdogs, about to make it 4 favorites. We're talking about where game day is going to be, and probably the biggest game of the year we've seen so far of ranked teams. You have the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide heading into Baton Rouge to take on the number 3 LSU Tigers. We talked about them earlier for Team Chaos. We want LSU to win this one. Why? Because fuck Alabama. We're tired of seeing them, and Nick Saban, please take the Browns job. Prove to everyone that you can coach the NFL and leave the college football landscape alone. Everyone would sleep much better at night knowing you're out there throwing the bag at players under the table to get them to come to your little football factory where they golf to the pros, and maybe 1 out of 10 actually has a great NFL career and doesn't disappear into the crowd. A night game in Baton Rouge. I have been to one of them back in 2007, where I went up with my boy Joe up to who is a University of Florida alumni, went up there with him and watched the Gators get rolled and won can't remember, was it Tebow still there back in 2007, or was it Chris Leak at the time? Either ways, the cheers and shouts of Tiger Bait that was going on was enough to drive you crazy. And then we went to the Alabama game last year against whatever fuck-ass school they played in November. I heard Roll Tide this, Roll Tide that. So they're 2 really annoying SC West fan bases. Expect tension to be high, expect arrests to be made, expect viral video coming from the tailgate scene. This game is going to get ugly. As ugly as it may be off the field, it may get uglier on the field, as we talked about earlier. Alabama is LSU, is kind of a boring team to watch offensively. They can't really score points, they just smother you with defense. The most points they put up this year, I think, is against Georgia 2 weeks ago, where they beat them by 20, 36-16. LSU, of course, both these teams coming in off bye weeks, so they've had plenty of time to study tape. Take it to the next level. Whose coaching staff do you trust more? Alabama's, where they employ fired SEC coaches or coaches around the country. Saban brings them in as consultants. Butch Jones, Lane Kiffin, things in my throat. You bring in guys like this to come in to learn how to run a successful operation like he has, and kind of disperses them out from there, where they go on to get other head coaching gigs or get offensive coordinator gigs. Mario Cristobal, Oregon. Things like that, These coaches where he just brings them in, they learn how he runs his system, and then he ships them out after a year or 2. Or do you trust LSU's coaching staff more? We have Ed Orgeron, who was kind of this unreal guy running the offensive line, who became interim head coach, but the players loved, and whoever else is on his staff. They ran off Matt Canada. They ran off who's Dave Aranda. They ran these guys off, or maybe Dave Aranda's still there, but they ran off Matt Canada, who was supposed to be one of the offensive minds, who's now basically running the program up at Maryland right now. Fun fact, I read this earlier. I wasn't sure where I was going to go with this or be able to slide this in. I almost forgot. I did a little bit of digging just for this prep here. Since 2010, LSU has yet to score over 17 points against Alabama. They just can't score. Maybe it's their quarterback situation. Maybe it's the lack of the declining less mile years. I'm not sure. But if you look at it that way, over time, LSU can't score on Alabama. And the way Alabama's offense has been looking so far, you know they're going to try to jump out to an early lead, taking shots deep, where it'll be important to see for LSU's vaunted secondary how they can do against Tua, and like LSU's Grant Delpit, and they can apply pressure, get creative with the blitzes, do anything to make Tua move in the pocket. Don't just let him sit back there and throw it. You'll probably put your best safety, who's at Greedy Williams, on Jerry Jeudy, whoever's been their big play threat for most part of the year. And then, of course, you got to make up for Alabama. If you can't beat you through the air, they're going to run the ball on you. So it'll be interesting to see that little creative dichotomy kind of play out. But if LSU hasn't scored more than 17 points against Alabama, and Alabama's get 15, are you telling me Alabama can't score 32 points? I'll wait. They've been blowing teams out at will, running up the score on them when necessary, and then taking their foot off people's necks. This will be one where Nick Saban says, you know what? We're going to show you how it's done. Alabama, 15. I expect Alabama to maybe win this one by 18. I'd be happy to be wrong and see LSU pull the outright upset at home. However, I don't think it's likely. Give me the Tide by 15. And finally, the last game of the night that we're going to talk about. We have number 7, Oklahoma, taking on the road, heading into, where the hell is that place? Is it Lubbock? Heading into Lubbock to take on Texas Tech. Oklahoma's coming to this game as 13.5-point favorites. Interesting thing here. 2 years ago, you had Baker Mayfield versus Patrick Mahomes. Baker at Oklahoma, Mahomes at Texas Tech. In that game, where Oklahoma won 66-59, Baker Mayfield threw for 545 yards, while Mahomes threw for 734 in a game. In one game, he threw for 734 yards, not counting over 80 yards on the ground rushing. Basically, this will be zero defense. The over-under on this one is 77. If you make any bets this weekend, if you ignore all of these, take the over 77.5 right here. Take that one all day long. I have 100% confidence in that both these teams combined can score over 38 points in this one. That's all they need. If both teams score that, you win. Oklahoma's gone over every game this year except for the Army close win over Army. It took them to overtime. Other than that, they're fucking blowing it out. Texas Tech have the number 3, if I'm not mistaken, quarterback in total yards per game in Alan Bowman, where he's throwing for 344 yards a game. Kyler Murray at 291, the number 12 offensive quarterback production per game. Oklahoma's getting 13.5 at home, and they don't really have their defensive coordinator, who got iced right after the Texas loss. But they did look good last week against Kansas State. But again, who's Kansas State? This is one of the teams, if you want some exciting in the college football playoff, cheer for Oklahoma. If you want true chaos, cheer for Texas Tech and the Ryan Gosling looking like Cliff Kingsbury. My gut says take Oklahoma in a shootout. My board, just because I like the way this goes, there's really not much logic to any of this, says take Texas Tech. I think Oklahoma's going to be coming out a little bit hotter than they have. Oh man, I'm looking at Texas Tech's losses now. They haven't really lost by much. Okay, let's make it interesting. Let's keep the board looking nice and run this little zigzag pattern here. Give me Texas Tech in the points. Oklahoma wins, but Texas Tech keeps it within 2 touchdowns. I may be wrong, but fuck it. It's going to be fun to find out if I am. And finally, you can't see down here other bets that we might place. We're not going to break down too much of. You have California on the road at number 9. Yeah, number 9, Washington State and Mike Leach, where Washington State's going to be 10-point favorites. Washington State still remains into 10 weeks of the season, the only undefeated team against the spread at 8-0. If you had to take a guess or had to throw some money somewhere, you might as well take the Cougars and the 10 points, especially because it's at home in Pullman. Gardner Minshew, a name like that at quarterback, you got to think he's doing something right. Give me the Cougars at 10 points. And finally, true degenerate hours down here, 11:59 Eastern Standard Time kickoff. Utah State as 19-point favorites on the road at Hawaii. Utah State, up until 2 weeks ago, was another one of those teams, so I chose to ride throughout the year against the spread. They're 7-1 against the spread so far. Let's make it 8-1. Give me the Mormon Aggies of Utah State to cover that one handedly, and that's it. How you feel? Take a look at this board. I'm going to zoom in on this now. Look at this board. Look how big it is. Yes, my handwriting's shit, but that doesn't matter. It just looks nice. Should I keep this going? Should I keep the board going on this? I don't know. It doesn't matter. If you have any feedback, anything you want to send over to me directly, you can always, if my camera will come back and not make me blurry no more, there we go. You can always send your feedback to me on social media. On Twitter, it's at j-325. On Instagram, jord.ash325. Or email me, directlyusual@gmail.com. And of course, as always, you can call me directly and leave a voicemail at 813-856-9093. No, I'm not going to answer. It's the hotline. You can text your questions. You can call and leave a voicemail. You can send me memes. Do me something. Give me some interaction. I would love that. Again, number 813-856-9093. That's it. That's week 10. We're in the books. I'm pleased with how this goes. If you think I should do anything different with my lighting so that you can see this board better, if I should get thicker markers, something, holler at me. Again, you just told my social media. It's going to be on the show notes in the page. And that's about it. I did go over the little sweet spot there that I was trying to maintain, that 30 to 32 minute mark. We are running this one a little bit longer, but I had to do off on a little tangent and talk to you about some real shit about how I let college football kind of ruin my life and ruin my girlfriend's life on the weekends. So shouts to her while she's in there playing Sims and trying to wind down while I'm yelling like a madman in the kitchen. So until next week, this is Jordan giving you the peace sign, throwing it low down here like Micah. Y'all don't know who that is. Listen to Touching Base, and we'll see you next week. See ya.